or real person, and he will dash, launch, burn, or throw at
A
things
este ruso no le
to
gustan los
feel as though
espacios
you are
cerrados.
Victor Pharaoh. And also what happens is that the Pharaoh will then be asked the Osiris. And guess what? The person will be put in a tomb, cut up, and have sex with a prostitute, okay? Pretending to be a priest. And then Horus will be, of course, this, okay? So this is all to create trauma, which creates disassociation, which allows the priest to program the pharaoh. Okay? Does that make sense? So
Mi arma está
how
repleta
this
de
works
balas.
is
Pronto lo
what
estarán
is
ustedes.
happening. There's the pharaoh is under a lot of trauma, but there's always someone there to support the pharaoh, and that's Isis, right? So there's a priest in the Isis mask using Isis voice to calm the pharaoh. You're not affecting the pharaoh to make the pharaoh dependent on Isis. And now Isis becomes the controller. The person of the pharaoh will always trust. If the priest ever want to tell Pharaoh to do
Bien,
something,
Nikolai,
then late
busca
at
algo de
night, while the
munición.
Pharaoh is sleeping or on drugs, Isis, wearing the mask, can come in and whisper the Pharaoh what to do. Okay?
Denle el martillo,
And
espíritus.
in the system, there are different ways in which the priest can use to activate the different identities. But the main mechanism is smell. Okay? Smell. And what this means is that while all this is happening, there's different steps for different identities. Okay, so for example, with Ra, it might be incense. Okay, but with Osiris, it might be, I don't know, roses, who knows, okay? But, so what happens is when the pharaoh is a throne room, and the priest needs the pharaoh to make a certain decision, the priest will let out different scents, which will activate different emotions in the pharaoh, which then determine how the pharaoh will make the decision. Okay, so there's different control mechanisms. Okay? And what's important for us to understand is
Explotan
we're
por
all
todas
like this,
partes.
right? Because, for example, we have different identities. At school, we're students. At home, we're a child. When we're outside, we're a friend. We're a friend. When we're at work, we're an employee. So we behave differently depending on different circumstances. And the circumstance activates a certain emotion, certain identity, certain behavior, certain action in us. Okay? So we're all programmable. But the pharaoh actually programs to a certain degree. So to better understand this, let me give you an example. Let's just say that you are the best football player, the best soccer player in the whole world. No one can beat you. You're basically nasty, okay? So one day,
Ahora
for
es casi
example, for
demasiado
whatever
fácil.
reason, you wake up and you lose all your memories. You forget what your name is. You forget who your friends are. You even forget that you play soccer. And what's also really strange is the entire world forgets that you play soccer. Okay? So you're just wandering around and you have no idea who you are. And you do this for like 10 years. Suddenly one day, for whatever reason, you're on a soccer field and someone kicks you a ball and kicks your back. Would you still be the best soccer player in the world? The answer is yes, you would be, right? So why did you can train? It's muscle memory. It's in your subconscious. So that's the trick here. The trick is to train you in a certain way to make you a
Si
robot.
trabajamos juntos,
Is it
podemos
possible
lograr
for me
grandes
to
cosas.
make someone into a killer? Yes. Because what I do is I make that person think about psychedelics and then train that person to shoot someone with a gun, okay? And then while you shoot that person, I use the word abracadabra. So what happens is the person who's walking with a gun, all they do is use the word abracadabra to the gun and
Lo que
shoot them.
nunca un ruso letal.
Right? So through programming, I can turn anyone to a robot. I can turn anyone to a sex robot, a killer robot, even a sex killer robot. Okay, I can do all
¿Quién
this,
disfrutaría con un
and that's a
brebaje
big
tan
secret
asqueroso?
here. Right? So 5,000 years ago in Egypt, they were doing this. But again, okay, what's really nice
boludo.
It's really important for you to doubt and question. Because we don't actually know that this happened. All the records have been locked in. And obviously, this would be the greatest state secret of Egypt. So from my perspective, it makes sense. Because the Pharaoh
No
needs
creo
to
que
be like
aventarles
this in
mierda
order
sea
to
tan
survive,
eficaz
right?
como tener munición.
Because the Pharaoh has brothers who want his throne. If he's a nice guy, guess what? Dead. Right? So that's true for everyone in power. If you're a nice person, you feel sorry for poor people, you're dead. Okay? So you have to have certain characteristics in order to be a great leader. And the
Olvidaron
main
la hoz con el
characteristic
martillo.
is dissociation. So the Pharaoh, so the priest are actually protecting the Pharaoh. Does that make sense? All right. So what I know this is hard, but I need you guys to remember the story of Egyptian mythology because we'll use this over and over. Also, these techniques that they use,
¡Hey, cerdos
teams,
infernales!
cutting
¿Les
rock,
importaría atacar a otro un
death,
ratito?
drowning, rape, also techniques that we still use today. So what they did in Egypt 5,000
Es
years
un
ago,
arma, da.
we
Dispara
still
balas,
do
da.
today.
Entonces es suficiente
There's
para
actually
Nikolai.
no difference. And I will show you this as we move on. Okay, but are there any questions so far? Yeah? Sorry. Can you speak in the microphone, please?
So they only trained the pharaoh, like, not his relatives.
Okay, that's a great question. Okay, that's a great question. So who's being trained into this system? And the answer is everyone, right? Because the people really control are the priests. What would they call the deep state? And it's possible the pharaoh gets an accident and dies. Okay, so someone went away to replace
Intentan volver a
the
llevarse
pharaoh.
nuestras almas.
So everyone in the royal family is being trained into this. The problem arises when the priest has divided into different political factions who all want power. Then they program the pharaoh's brother to quit a civil war. Okay? So everyone who is in the royal family is being programmed like this. So then this raises a really interesting question. It's like, why would they really do this? Right? What's interesting is
Munición
that
gratis. Eso sí.
these psychedelics and these products, they called NDE, okay? What we call near-death experiences. So for like a minute or 10 minutes or half an hour, they are literally dead. What we know is when that happens, and it's really interesting is when you feel you're almost dead, you transcend into the spirit world. In the spirit world, you actually meet God. And we know this because tens of thousands of people have had an NDE, near-death experience. You know, they got in a car crash and they blacked out, or they were drowning and they almost died, or they had a heart attack and died. They all went to meet God. And they all said, up there in the spirit world, it's all peaceful, it's all love. You can feel God in you. But God told me I cannot die. I have to come back and tell people the true spirit world. So the world family does this because it gives them wisdom and access to the spirit world, so that they feel as though they're truly God. And so they do
El
it.
sabor es fuerte.
So then that's the question then is, how does the priest know how to do this? Because they kill on themselves. Because they're free and they want to access the spirit world themselves, and they recognize that near-death experiences and psychedelics are the best two ways to go in that world. So they drown themselves, they set themselves up, they stalk themselves. There are lots of ways to take near-death experience. Okay? But that's how they know the secret. And what's amazing is we have not improved on Egyptians today. Like all the modern technology, all the modern medicine, science, we're just doing what they're doing. Okay? So does it make sense, guys? Okay, any more questions before I move on?
Ay, creo que me arañó.
Okay. George, excuse me?
really
Okay, that's a great question. Okay. So what is hell? Heaven, what is hell? What can do bad things? What can do good things? You know, this is so different. Okay, so what people, for example, NDE will tell you is this. When you go to a third world, the first thing that will happen is something called a lifeless view.
¡Sin
What's a lifeless
munición,
view? A lifeless view is this. You're able to
que
see
siga la
exactly what you did
carnicería!
your entire life. So if you're a bad person, that's hell. Because you're able to now feel pain for the first
Ese
time, right?
sabor es
Just in
desconocido
thinking
en
you don't
Rusia.
feel any pain, but guess what? You're just tricking yourself because when you're up in the third world, you have to see exactly what you did to other people, and you have to feel their pain. So that's what hell is. And heaven is you can see the good that you did. Okay? So what they say is that when you do evil, you create
Este
negative energy.
ruso está listo
And
para
when you do
luchar.
good, you create positive energy. And you can't see that in this world, but up in the spirit world, you're able to see for yourself finally how much evil you did and how much good you did. Okay? And that's what heaven and hell is. Okay? And I mean, I don't want to go too much into this, but another theory is that when you die, the only thing that is what remains in you is love. Okay, so love is actually a physical force, and the more love you have, the
¡Mueran,
higher you can ascend
cerdos!
in the spirit world. And the less love you have,
¡No
then you can
reputación!
start and you
Por
become
fin,
angry again.
un pago justo por mis
Okay,
molestias.
so be a nice person. All right. Okay. Great question. Okay. So are we clear about this? Okay. But we'll discuss more about near-death experiences later on in the spirit world
Estoy
later on.
rodeado
Okay.
de
But I want you to
monstruos.
understand that 5,000 years ago in Egypt, they discovered how to take
Repta, perro
programs the pharaoh
infernal.
into a robot that they control, and we still use the same techniques today. Okay. Any questions before I move on? All right. So let's go to the PPT. Okay. So as you can see, in
¡Los
Egypt, they could
rentadores!
predict
Cuidado,
the
estás en el
pharaoh
piso,
on
pedazo
the
de hijo de
planet.
remil puta.
And it makes sense, right? Because one person can control an entire empire. It's the priests, the bureaucrats, who really have the power.
Qué arma de mierda, cuidado.
Okay, so we talk about the social identity disorder, right? And you think, wow, it's
¿A
really
alguien le
great to
sobra
have all
munición?
this power. But actually, the one thing about the social personality disorder is you never feel happiness. In fact, you can only feel misery. So the way to reduce your misery is by making others more miserable than you are. Right? So the people in power are committed to making the
Su
world as
música
evil
persigue
and
mis
as unhappy
sueños.
and as miserable as possible because that's the only way they can feel
No hay
good about it.
subfusil que no
Okay,
me
so this is
guste.
dissociative identity disorder. As you can see, it's really bad. Okay, you have identity
Oh,
confusion,
nada.
missing memories, flashbacks, intrusive thoughts, okay, internal voices. It's not a great feeling to have this.
Pero mogólico. ¡Mogólico!
Necesito ayuda. Me resbalé con la sangre de los muchos zombies que he matado.
So,
Nikolai regresó. Como nuevo, preparado y con ganas de luchar.
okay,
Prueban la furia del
so
ejército
now I want to
rojo.
talk about
Dios.
9/11 and the war on terror. This is Donald Rumsfeld, and
¿Amigo, estás afuera? Ahí salgo. bugueado, men. Contás todo ahí en el momento, boludo. Sí. Recién, ya me parece esto de cupones de vender al ninja no me negocio.
Pero si qué negocio, si es que me compran cupones, no los negocios.
Sí, no, te dejo los 38 a los, digo, los 8 años, digo, cuánto le puedo acá, así que bueno, que sí. Pero los 100, para sacar el negocio, hay un fácil que yo lo puedo, los 100, porque yo tengo la hora está de 10. Yo pongo ahí, pero después que me den un número, y me termina dando como menos así, dije, que no, no, y yo no le conté, dije, conté mi plata, pero yo no conté los cupones. Llegué acá, los tiré todos, los conté, tengo menos, así, digo, no, 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 no. Y yo, bueno, te había dicho ese número. Digo, ¿para cómo lo habíamos hablado? No, no te en llamada. ¿Y me vas a hacer un drogadito o vos me estás cagando, pero de la mejor forma del mundo? Ah, no sabes, Julio. Ah, amigo, no, y pensé, no sé, vos no hay ninguna que me hizo uno de los. Claro, que es un dragón. Es un dragón. Habrá quedado sin número en la calculadora. Porque me dijo el número de en la calculadora. ¿Para cuándo necesitas vos? Ok, ok, ok. Calculadora. Si me has dicho 16, itu mereka.
Mejor negocio todo es matar zombies.
After 9/11, America decided. Okay. Feel good. So the way to you think, wow, it's really great to have all this power. But actually, the one thing about the social personality disorder is you don't always feel happy. In fact, you don't always feel misery. So the way to reduce your misery is by making others more miserable than you are. Okay, so the people on top is love. How much good you did. Okay? And that's what heaven and hell is. Okay? And I mean, I don't want to go too much into this, but another theory is that when you die, don't get that is what remains in you is love. Okay, so love is actually a physical force. And the more love you have, the higher you can extend in the spirit world. And the less love you have, when you don't stop and you come back and do it again. I don't go too much into this, but another theory is that when you die, don't get that is what remains in you is love. Okay, so love is actually a physical force.
Solo un
And the more
imbécil
love
bebería
you
algo tan
have,
horrible.
the higher you can extend in the spirit world. And the less love you have, when you can stop and you come back and do it again. Okay, so be a nice person. Again, good question. So are we clear about this? Okay, but we'll discuss more about near-death experiences later on in the spirit world later on. Okay, but I was going to say that 5,000 years ago in Egypt, they discovered how to program the pharaoh into a robot that they can control. And we still use the same technique today. Okay? Any questions before I move on? Fine. So let's go to the PPP. It is love. Okay, so love is how much good you did. Okay? And that's what heaven and hell is. Okay? And I mean, I don't want to go too much into this, but another theory is that when you die, the only thing that is remains in you is love. Okay? So love is actually a physical force. And the
Suministros
more
para
love
todos,
you
al estilo
the higher you can
soviético.
stand in the third world. The less love you have, when you can stop and you need to come back and do it again. Okay? So, be a nice person. Alright? Okay, good question. Okay, so are we clear about this? Okay, well, we'll discuss more about
¡Puta!
they discovered how to program the Pharaoh into a robot that they can control.
A
And we still use
reparar a
the
los
same
cerdos
technique
del
today.
infierno por su
Okay? Okay? And I mean, I don't know too much into this, but another theory is that when you die, the only thing that is remains in you is love. Okay, so love is actually a physical force. And the more love you have, the higher you can stand in the third world. And the less love you have, when you can stop and you have to come back and do it again. Okay?
camaradas. Compartan la munición
Be a nice
conmigo.
person.
¡Munición
Right?
máxima!
Okay, great
Este
question.
ruso
Okay,
está listo y
so are we
ansioso
clear
por
about
ver
this?
más
Okay,
sangre.
we'll discuss more about near-death experiences later on, in the spirit world later on. Okay, but I want you to understand that 5,000 years ago in Egypt, they discovered how to program the pharaoh into a robot that they can control.
Me está
And we
cansando
still
este
use the technique
repugnante
today.
jugo.
Okay? Any questions before I move on? All right, so let's go to the PPT. Okay, so as you can see, in Egypt, it's the priests who are really in control. The pharaohs are just a puppet. Okay? And it makes sense, right? Because one person cannot control an entire empire. It's the priests, the bureaucrats, who really have the power.
Siento que mi cuerpo vibra de fuerza.
Okay, so we talk about dissociative identity disorder. Right? And you think, wow, it's really great to have all this power. But actually, the one thing about dissociative personality disorder is you never feel things. In fact, you only feel misery. So the way to reduce your misery is by making others more miserable than you
Me
are.
queda poca munición.
Okay, so people with power to making the world as evil and as unhappy and as miserable as possible, because that's the only way they can feel good about themselves. Okay, so this is dissociative identity disorder. As you can see, it's really bad. Okay, you have identity confusion, you have shooting memory, flashbacks, intrusive thoughts. Okay, it's not a great feeling to have this.
Tienen tantas ganas de morir, cerdos. Es como fuegos artificiales, pero con sangre, tripas y cerdos del infierno.
Oh. Sorry, I'll just get
Demasiado animado para el gusto de Nikolai.
Okay. Okay. So now I want to talk about 9/11 and the war on terror. This is almost Donald Rumsfeld, and after 9/11, America decided that they need to take offensive. They need to hunt down the terrorists and control their behavior. And so they start to arrest terrorists. But then bad things start to happen, right? So this is a person in Iraq,
Pónganse en fila
Abu
para la
Dhabi,
masacre.
where they arrest terrorists, and they're doing strange things to these terrorists, as you can see. Okay, so this is pretty disgusting stuff. And this is leaked to CBS News, and CBS News like stole all this.
Atrás, zombies.
All right, so it's pretty disgusting. So now the question question is, why is this happening? Here's an explanation. The military said these are soldiers who went crazy and they went rogue. So we arrested them and we punished them. But then they discovered that actually psychologists were responsible for this program. So these are two psychologists, and they were sued the victim. And during the court testimony, we discovered that they were paid $80 million by the CIA to develop this program. So what is going on here? This is not something that happened randomly. It was designed by the government, by the CIA. So why is this happening? Well, they call it enhanced interrogation. Okay? This is a book, The Dark Side, by Jane Mayer, who's a fantastic reporter. I highly recommend this book. She's a reporter for the New York and spent years looking into why this portrait happened. And what she argued is it's an experiment to change the mentality of these terrorists. And the theory is called learned helplessness. You can basically take someone like Ra, say the virtuous hero, and turn him to Osiris through certain techniques. Okay? Remember, Ra, the identity is the virtuous hero who fights Osiris every day. Osiris is the person who gets tortured by death every day. Okay? So the goal of this experiment is to turn Ra
El soviético francotirador dominará. Tengo un aspecto muy sexy con esta arma tan grande.
into Osiris.
El sexy Nikolai.
And the person who develops learned helplessness is also the person who develops nuclear positive psychology. His name is Martin Seligman. Okay, so that's psychology that you're learning
Una recompensa por nuestra labor.
is brainwashing.
Dale, mogólico.
So that's a theory, and it's a good theory, and this is what most people believe. The problem, though, is it doesn't actually work. Because after the CIA started to torture all these prisoners, they became ISIS, Islamic State. ISIS is the name of what? The different goddess who saved Osiris, right? And his father Horus. Do you think it's coincidence? Maybe not. Okay? Maybe not. So ISIS is this fanatical death cult that are terrorists who go around the Middle East and kill a lot of people. Okay, you might have seen their videos where they do a lot of stuff, like they headed people. Okay? So what a lot of people discovered is that there's actually a direct connection between ISIS and this torture. In fact, in many academics, so for example, Jeremy Story and Andrew Thompson, they discovered that many of the ISIS fighters in the U.S. currently combated in the Middle East using extremism during the time in prison, controlled by the United States. So it's really strange. The United States thought that they were going to use the psychology to try to turn Ra, the terrorist, into Osiris, the citizen. But they ended up doing the reverse. Osiris became Ra. How stupid were they? Right? And these guys were paid $80 million to be this stupid. Okay? So this is Human Rights First, an organization that started to interview these prisoners of America, okay? And what they discovered is these prisoners told them. Okay? Their testimony shows that ICE recruitment is still ongoing, unchecked by Egyptian authorities, including the potential cause and enforcement other views that pervade Egyptian prison. So it's really strange how these prisons almost claiming ISIS terrorists. The U.S. is currently combating in the Middle East, even extremism during a time in prison, controlled by the United States. So it's really strange. the United States thought that they were going to use the psychology to turn Ra, the terrorist, into Osiris, the citizen. But they ended up doing the reverse. Osiris became Ra. How stupid were they? Right? And these guys paid $80 million to be this stupid. Okay? So this is Human Rights First, an organization that started to interview these prisoners of ISIS is the name of what? And it changed the mentality. Discovered that there are actually psychologists who are responsible for this program. So these are two psychologists, and they were sued by the victim. And during the court testimony, we discovered that they were paid $80 million by the CIA to develop this program. So what is going on here? This is not something that happened randomly. It was designed by the government, by the CIA. So why is this happening? Well, they call it enhanced interrogation. Okay? This is a book, The Dark Side, by Jane Mayer, who's a fantastic reporter. I highly recommend this book. She's a reporter for the New Yorker and spent years looking into why this torture happened. And what she argued is it's an experiment to change the mentality of these terrorists. And the theory is called learned helplessness. You can basically take someone like Ra, okay, the virtuous hero, and turn him to Osiris through certain techniques. Okay? Remember, Ra, the identity is the virtuous hero who fights Apophis every day. Osiris is the person who gets tortured by Set every day, okay? So the goal of this experiment is to turn Ra into Osiris. And the person who learned helplessness is also the person who developed a new theory called positive psychology. His name is Martin Seligman. Okay, so positive psychology that you're learning in school is brainwashing. Okay? All right. So that's a theory, and it's a great theory, and this is what most people believe. The problem, though, is it doesn't actually work. Because after the CIA started to torture all these prisoners, they became ISIS, Islamic State. ISIS is the name of what? The Egyptian goddess who saved Osiris, right? And who fathered Horus. Do you think it's a coincidence? Maybe not. Okay? Maybe not. So ISIS is this fanatical death cult that are terrorists who go around the Middle East and kill a lot of people. Okay, you might have seen their videos where they do a lot of nasty stuff, like beheading people. Okay? So they started to torture all these prisoners. They became what most people believe a new theory called positive psychology. His name is Martin Seligman. Okay, so positive psychology that you're learning in school is brainwashing. Okay? All right. So that's a theory, and it's a good theory, and this is what most people believe. The problem, though, is it doesn't actually work. Because after the CIA started to torture all these prisoners, they became ISIS, Islamic State. ISIS is the name of what? The Egyptian goddess who saved Osiris, right? And who fathered Horus. Do you think it's a coincidence? Maybe. Okay. All right. So that's a theory, and it's a great theory, and this is what most people believe. The problem, though, is it doesn't actually work. Because after the CIA started to torture all these prisoners, they became ISIS, Islamic State. ISIS is the name of what? The Egyptian goddess who saved Osiris, right? And who fathered Horus. Do you think it's a coincidence? Maybe not. Okay? Maybe not. So ISIS is this fanatical death cult that are terrorists who go around the Middle East. Okay? All right. So that's a theory, and it's a great theory, and this is what most people believe. The problem, though, is it doesn't actually work. Because after the CIA started to torture all these prisoners, they became ISIS, Islamic State. ISIS is the name of what? The Egyptian goddess. Okay. Okay. All right. So that's a theory, and it's a great theory, and this is what most people believe. The problem, though, is it doesn't actually work. Because after the CIA started to torture all these prisoners, they became ISIS, Islamic State. ISIS is the name of what? The Egyptian goddess who saved Osiris, right? And whose father Horus. Okay, is it a coincidence? Maybe not. Okay? Maybe not. So ISIS is this fanatical death cult that are terrorists who go around the Middle East and kill a lot of people. Okay, you might have seen their videos where they do a lot of nasty stuff, like beheading people. Okay? So what a lot of people discovered is that there's actually a direct connection between ISIS and this torture. In fact, in many academics, so for example, Jeremy Suri and Andrew Thompson, they discovered that many of the ISIS fighters the U.S. is going to combat in the Middle East, they're going to kill them during a time in prison. So it's really strange. The United States thought that they were going to use the psychology to try to turn Iraq, the terrorists, into Osiris, the citizen. But they ended up doing the reverse. Osiris became Ra. How stupid were they? Right? And these guys are paid $80 million to be stupid.
¡Munición máxima! Suministros para
So
todos,
this is
al
Human
estilo
Rights First,
soviético.
an organization that starts to interview the prisoners of America, okay? And what they discovered is these prisoners told them, okay? Their testimony shows that ICE treatment is still ongoing, unchecked by Egyptian authorities, and huge and potential part of torture and other views that pervade Egyptian prison. So it's really strange how these prisons are claiming ISIS terrorists. What's going on?
¿Qué pasa cuando tocas
This
a
is like a
Nicolás?
vulnerable, okay? You have to rise in these prisons, and I think doing this. So most of these prisoners were so traumatized they forgot what happened. But we have one man, Abu Zubanai, who remembered what happened. He's a Saudi citizen who was captured. And he told us what they were doing to him, okay? So when you listen to his story, and you tell me what this story reminds you of. So
Muerte rápida para
they
los
basically were
indignos.
force feeding him, torturing him, strangling him. Then they put him in a coffin and they drowned him. Then they used a power drill to lift him. Okay, to basically cut him up. Ooh, you guys know this before? Oh, and also sexual humiliation, right? But they had a woman who tried to seduce him. Also, guys, right? You guys see this? What's the story? What's the story, guys? What's the story? The story of Egypt. This is what they did to Pharaoh 5,000 years ago. It's the same story. It's the same script. In other words,
Un arma a la altura de la
what
importancia
they're
de
really
nuestra
doing
misión.
is they're trying to